wrong motives, dirty clothing, stinking of pig slop. And he's standing there, and his dad is just bolting. My boy. I thought he could have been dead. I laid up at night, and his mom and I worried about him. We've prayed for him. What is God showing us through this story? He's saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm meeting with sinners and tax collectors. Let me show you the extent by which I'm willing to traverse and travel in order to rescue these sinners and tax collectors. It's why I came to earth. And you want to be obstructionary in the process? Let me tell you how far I'll go. I'll go after the one sheep, and I'll take it on my arms, and I'll bring it back to the fold. I'll sweep the entire house, man, and I'll go after that coin, and I'll find it. And then I'll rejoice with my neighbors saying, I found the one that was lost. And now we see a personal side to a father who sees you far off, wrong motives, nothing to show for yourselves, broken marriages, broken lives, reeking of this world. Well, we are in our Rabbi series. In the second part of that, yesterday, or actually last week, when I was teaching this, I really was going to try to teach it all as one, because really it is Jesus answering an issue and answering it with these three stories. And so I don't want you to forget what we've already talked about in the opening of our Rabbi series, as we looked at what a rabbi is. That he is a teacher, but he's not just a teacher. He is the teacher. He is the one who you join yourself to, the one you watch and admire his teaching, agree with his philosophy and his take on the Old Testament, the law and the prophets, and you then decide to ask, can I follow you, Master? The master or rabbi then says, well, follow me for a few days and we'll see. And during that time, he's testing you out. You're testing him out. At the end of that time, he'll either say, come and follow me, or he will let you go about your merry way because he doesn't want to hang out with you anymore. And he doesn't want to travel with you and camp with you for days on end. And so there's this agreement that's being made, not just rabbi to student, but student to rabbi, where you are agreeing to follow. And so we drew correlations to Christ's life and see the difference in the first century rabbi-teacher-disciple relationship versus what Christ did, which was a little different. They did not approach him. Matter of fact, these are individuals that had all been counted out. They had not been counted as ones who could learn in the midrash or the Beit Midrash, the house of study. They weren't going to be invited into the synagogue to teach and expound on the Torah. These were individuals who were despised by their people, Matthew the tax collector, Peter, Andrew, and James, and these fishermen. There were roughnecks that they had their career in life, and it wasn't going to be a rabbi. It wasn't going to be that they were going to be teachers of the law. That ship had sailed in their society. But Jesus approaches them. They do not approach him. He finds Matthew at a tax collector's table, and he says, come and follow me. He finds Peter throwing a net and says, leave the net behind, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. He is calling his disciples to follow him. They are not doing that in this case. And so we see this teacher and student relationship, this rabbi that means so much more than teacher. That means you're going to follow in the dust of the rabbi, and you want to be like the rabbi. And so, in this conversation, then Jesus is eating with tax collectors and sinners, people of ill repute, people that in that town, the people in that town knew who they were. Now, I don't know what kind of scenario you have to think of in your hometown, but there's probably a few people that have a name that is infamous, that you could say, oh, so-and-so. Yeah, I remember him. Matter of fact, we used to do this from time to time. There's a guy named Jerry Martin. He was a student in the program. And I don't know what got us on this, but we were in one of his old neighborhoods, and somebody didn't recognize Jerry. And is that Jerry? That's not Jerry. That's not Jerry. And we in turn said, you're right, that's not Jerry. Old Jerry dead. And so that became like a saying for 13 months. Oh, he dead. So every once in a while, whenever we were asking where somebody was, or where so-and-so go, oh, he dead. It just went on and on. It became a part of Teen Challenge vocabulary for a while. Well, same scenario. We have individuals here who are dead to their old lives. They have left it all behind. Where is Peter? He dead. Where is Matthew? They do not recognize them by who they used to be. And so now they're recognizing people on another account. They're recognizing that people that are eating with Jesus don't belong there. If he was a true rabbi and a true teacher of the law, he would know what kind of sinners these are. They have a name in town. We know who they are. That's old Jerry. He's not a good person. Why are you eating with him? Why are you sitting down at a table breaking bread and sharing in the common dish? Why are you sitting down in that low-lying first century Jewish table of fellowship, the center of the household, from which if you invite somebody to that table, there's something you're doing there. You're receiving them. And that's what the text says. It says they were mad at Jesus because he ate with sinners, but not just because he ate with them, but he received them. There's something else deeper going on here. He's accepting them in their current plight, in their current situation. He says, come as you are, long before Kurt Cobain did. So then he goes into telling a story. They're upset. Who does he think he is? This guy's not. They've come to figure out, is he a teacher? Is he the Messiah? Is he truly a solid rabbi? Maybe they want to follow him. Maybe they're seeking to see if maybe they could be his disciples. Some tried. So they notice in the moment, people that are here are sinners. Jesus senses this and he decides to tell three stories. We talked about the first story last week. We talked about the story of the parable of the lost sheep. It's a pretty famous story. A sheep goes lost. The owner leaves the 99 sheep who are safe in the confines of the fold. He runs after the one that's missing. It shows this personal relationship with the tender-hearted shepherd, Jehovah Rohi, and his sheep. That he goes after the one. He's not sitting there in the confines of the fold saying, it's just one. It's just Jerry. It's just one. I got 99. The 99 are safe. They're okay. That's enough. So what does Jesus do in the first part of that parable and the two parables after that? He is explaining to them why he's eating with sinners and tax collectors. His purpose on earth, to set free the lost. It's not the well who need a doctor, it's the sick who do. And so Jesus is putting his finger on a situation that they're all going to understand. Matter of fact, in another situation, he says this, if your donkey falls into a ditch on the Sabbath day, are you not going to get your donkey out of a ditch? So the answer is, yeah, the donkey has value. It's stuck in a ditch. Even though it's the Sabbath day, I'm not supposed to do any work. I'll work to get my donkey out of a ditch. Everybody in the crowd knew that. Jesus speaks to people in their current situations, people that own donkeys, people that have possibly had their donkey stuck in a ditch on the Sabbath day. He's talking to shepherds, people who shepherd sheep, who know the stubbornness of their hearts and how some wander and some don't. How some are confident in the shepherd and some are not. So we have the first is the tender-hearted shepherd, and then we move on to where we are today. And our text being in chapter 15 of Luke, verse 8 and 10. Let me read to you that. It's going to be a little slightly different translation than you see on the board, but saying the same thing. Chapter 15 of Luke, verse 8. Or what woman? So now we finished the story about this lost sheep. Jesus has proven a point through the story of the lost sheep. Now he's going to prove the same point through a different story. Or what woman, if she had 10 silver coins and loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search thoroughly until she finds it? Then when she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost. In the same way, I tell you, there is joy in the presence of God's angels over one sinner who repents. So we have the first story of a lost sheep. Now we have the story of a lost son. Lost coin. The last story will be the story of the lost son. All proving the same point, all teaching the same truth, but giving a greater light within each. So now he goes on to talking about a coin. So we can immediately assess the value of this coin because of the tenacity of this woman to search for that coin. She is lighting a lamp. She's removing things from the house. She's searching under everything. She then takes a broom and sweeps the entire thing. At this point, nothing could be lost within the four corners of that house. Everything's been removed. Everything's been swept. You could see every piece of dirt that you are sweeping. So we have this idea of value and what the value of this coin is. What was the value of the sheep? It was valuable enough for the shepherd to leave the 99 and go after the one. Then we start to think about people and not sheep. And we start to think about brothers like Jesse Mina and the rescue attempt and success that went on in his life as God went after him. Well, now there's something else lost, and it's a coin. We see a value in this and that there's a value to the one who owns it, and she has so much wrapped up in this that she's willing to sweep everything to find it. You can imagine. What would you be willing to remove everything from your house for and sweep to find? A quarter? No. Penny? Certainly not. $100 bill? Yeah. I'm looking for that. I'm going to pick some things up and turn some things over to find that. So we can assume values, and we don't have to put ourselves somewhere outside of the biblical text. We can understand what's being taught here and what it would mean for us to want to go after something, and what kind of value would it need to have for us to pursue it diligently like this woman. That's a week's worth of labor, man, for me to tear a house apart. At least half a week's worth of labor to look for something like that. Now we see something a little different in this woman that is looking for this coin of great value. That she has become frantic in her looking. Now, he's relating to something here that we have all gone through. Like, have you ever lost something? Well, if you've smoked meth, you've lost some things. If you smoke crack, you probably lost it. And I'm not talking about your mind. I'm talking about literally you've lost quite a few things. You don't know where you put them. And you walk back in the room like, why did I come into this room? That partly is getting old, but part of that is attributed to something else. I remember frantically looking for things, man. Just bending back blades of carpet, just looking for things. He's touching on something here about a woman who's looking for a thing, who's looking for something, and she desperately wants it. Now you kind of see a desperation here. It's a little different than the story with the shepherd. We see a tender-hearted shepherd who's concerned for his livestock, who's willing to go after the one. Now you see a frantic woman tearing her house apart to find something that she's lost. I don't know about you, but there's very few things in life that are as frustrating as walking into a room and saying, I know I set that right there. What are you kids doing to me? You playing hide and go seek with my things? Wife, where did you put it? Usually I find out that I actually picked it up and set it somewhere else. That's usually what I find out in that process. But we get this idea for someone who's looking for something. There's something very frustrating about not knowing where something is at. And I tell a little story about my daughter JL, who's now a teenager, but at the time was not. She had a My Little Pony backpack that she carried around, a little purse that she put inside that My Little Pony backpack. You might find some chapstick inside that little purse of hers, or some lip liner, or, My Little Pony keychain. That's JL. She's about 4 years old, and she loves to hide my stuff. Now she's older. It's a different JL. But she would take and hide things. And there's a few things I need to function during the day. Keys, wallet, cell phone. Pretty much all day long I'm checking keys, usually on my hip with a clip, wallet, back pocket, cell phone, pocket. Keys, wallet, cell phone. Keys, wallet, cell phone. All day long. Anybody? Nobody? Well, everybody's... Guys checking for your phones? All right. So, keys, wallet, cell phone. My daughter I guess didn't understand the importance of my keys, my wallet, my cell phone. And at some point, and our keys here at Teen Challenge used to be different. They used to be about this big. You have to carry them like this. There were so many keys. Every door had a different key. And so you would go through all the different keys. Anyway, different story. But I had this big thing of keys missing, and I just knew I was going to have to go and ask the boss at that time, David, I lost all my keys, and he's going to give me some lecture about, well, you can't just leave your keys laying around everywhere, or a student could grab it and take your car. You can't just leave stuff laying around. I just was waiting on the lecture, and it didn't want it. We're going to have to go back and make you a new set of keys, I guess we'll get some. And I just didn't want to go through that process. I remember being frantic looking for my keys. I remember taking couches, flipping them over, couch cushions. Anybody ever find the wealth of treasure inside of a couch cushion? As a kid, looking to save up enough money for a snow cone, just digging your hands down in there, hitting needles and all kinds of stuff. Not those kind of needles. We're talking adolescence here. We're talking early life. But you can remember, the things we would find. If you dug in our couches right now at my house, we could probably subsist off of the contents of the couch for months as our survival prep plan, as we find old stale chicken nuggets and fries and candies all matted in and Jolly Ranchers just melted into the fabric. Anybody out there suffering with me as a dad? Glory. Just the goodness inside of the couch. Well, I remember looking for things, digging through that, because if it's somewhere, it's probably fallen into the couch, because there's a never-ending hole that captures everything that you ever wanted and needed down deep in the recesses of that couch. But I can remember flipping them all over, tearing the entire house apart, couches, cushions, vacuum, sweeping, and then not being able to find them, having to go into the office. Hey, Dave, man, I lost my keys. And then the lecture, and then all the things that go on with it. Guess what? Those keys reappeared, oh my gosh, probably a year later. They were inside of a toy box, at the bottom of a toy box, inside of a My Little Pony backpack. And inside of that My Little Pony backpack was her purse, her little tiny purse with her lip gloss. And right next to her lip gloss were Daddy's keys, where she had hid them safely away for an entire year. We have all looked for something frantically. We knew it's got to be here. I mean, there's something about this story, man, that speaks to me almost more than the story of the prodigal son, which is the most popular. And that's this relentless pursuit of the lost that we see. That Jesus is saying, you're right, I'm sitting and eating with them. I'm not only eating with them, I'm going after them. You're complaining because I'm sitting and I'm breaking bread with them? Literally, I've left the 99 and I'm sitting with the one. Then he brings it to a coin. No, I am purposefully going to rip this sucker apart until I find it. I'm going to take the rugs up. I'm going to sweep the floor. I'm going to flip the couches over. I'm going to search until I find it. Men, that should scare you to death. It should scare you into the continual running. Anybody ever here been running your whole life? Down every dark corridor, down every alley, desperately trying to find some dark corner to hide in from your responsibilities, from life, from heartache, from depression, from pain, from all that comes with this life. You ever been there? Hiding out, running. Whew. Some of you guys ran so many times. I don't know if you got any more shots left in you. I know I don't. I can't run again. And I know this, that God will pursue me. Because I'm His. Something very powerful about this story as he talks about a sheep, but now he's talking about a coin which he's going to sweep the earth to find. I can't help but think of passages like the one in the book of Psalms where David says this, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there." Where are you going to run, man? If you make your bed in hell, there you are. If I take the wings of the morning, and if I dwell in the depth of the sea, you are there. The psalmist David is focusing in on this same truth, that he will sweep the earth to find you. The book of Job says it like this. He says, the end of the book of Job, God makes this pronunciation. He says, I have taken the earth, the globe, by the edges, and I have shaken the wicked out of it. Where can you go to hide from him? What dark hotel room with the shades drawn? Where can you go to flee from his presence? My friend, you cannot. He will sweep the house and he will find you. Are you done running? I love this because Jesus now is going to shift gears as we look at this son in this next passage. We'll start reading in verse 13. Matter of fact, let me start in verse 11. Then Jesus said, a man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate that will belong to me. So he divided his assets between the 2 boys. After a few days, the younger son gathered together all he had and left on a journey to a distant country. And there he squandered his wealth with a wild lifestyle. Then after he had spent everything, a severe famine took place in the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and worked for one of the citizens of the country, who sent him to the fields to feed pigs. He was longing to eat the carob pods the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. But when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired workers have food enough to spare? But here I am dying from hunger. So now Jesus is going to tell a personal story about a son. He's talked about livestock. He's talked about a valuable possession in a coin. And now he's going to talk about the most valuable of these to the crowd and to God. And that is the son. The son who wanders, the son who is lost. But now we don't have just a sheep who's wandering to and fro or an inanimate coin that's just laying there. We have a person who's making decisions. A person who understands right and wrong. A person who can speak and come to his father and say, I want my inheritance. Now, what I found interesting is that he divides the inheritance among the 2 boys. At this moment, he makes the division of the inheritance. And one son, the younger, gets his inheritance, and the older son gets his portion. And the first thing we're going to see in verse 13 is that he wastes this on prodigal living. We see at the end of this passage that the brother, complaining after it's all said and done, says that he wasted his money on prostitutes. We can know that this boy wasted his money on prodigal living, on drink in excess, on prostitutes, on a lifestyle contrary to what he had been raised living. And so he has wasted it. I love this story because it perfectly outlines my life. God, I'm going to do this on my own. If you don't mind, I'm going to just go ahead and do this on my own. I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to go figure it out. And in that moment, has anyone suffered from waste? If we could take all the money, we could get real upset with ourselves real quick. We could think about all the money wasted on cigarettes from the day we started smoking and the college fund that we could now send our daughter to school with, but that was wasted on pack after pack after pack. What about all the weed? What about all the meth? What about all the crack? What about all the coke? What about all the prostitutes? What about the living that just attaches itself to all of that? Where it feels like there's just a gaping hole of finances just pouring out of it. Like everything is in waste in those moments. Sure, we're using, and that is going to cause waste. But what also happens is typically in that moment we're like, hey, everybody, welcome to the party. I got a room for the night. Oh, yeah, I bet. I'll see you there. It's about that, all of it. About 4 a.m. with that group of people in that dark place. That hiding, the running. And what do we find in those moments? We find waste. It's no different in the time of the Bible. The same waste that the prodigal son experienced is the same waste that I've experienced. Thank God my house in Oklahoma City was tied down in a mortgage. I would have smoked every bit of it. And I tried to get the bank to give me another loan to take out against it. Thank God they did not. Or I wouldn't have a house to live in right now. I'd be renting somewhere. Because I would have wasted all of it. It just goes and it just goes. And then the thing we see next in verse 14, as we look at the son, is that you would think with all this money expended, like if we could take it up and stack it up in bricks, just stack up the hundreds. With all that money spent, how much should we have received for all of that? Like what should we get if today you're sitting with that stack of money behind you and someone's trying to sell you something? What's your position going to be? What value does that money have? What could it buy you? A house? A car? What did we get out of it? Ashes, heartache, death, divorce, estrangement from our children. Come on, man. The wages of sin has always been death. And we, of all people, have tasted it. We've experienced it. And if anybody should come to that place and be like, yep, that tastes like death, I don't want nothing to do with it. That after all that spent, what did you get in return? Your supply of gas? Your supply of rent? A house? A car? New wardrobe? No. A body racked with pain from addiction. A heart turned inside out that couldn't love anymore and couldn't feel anymore. Come on, somebody. We got what we paid for. And we paid a life of sin. And even after we squandered it all, even after we invited everybody to the party, the reality is when the party's over and the money's gone, the people gone. And you're looking around like, man, where are all these people at? Well, this prodigal son experienced nothing different. He experienced the waste of pouring his entire inheritance away. My goodness, could he have purchased? We're talking about a valuable farm here that his dad is managing, that his brother has gotten half of the inheritance here. That's a lot of money. This dude was spending it. And he got nothing for it. Then we see in verse 16, it says that no one gave him anything. We've got waste, we've got want, the desperate wanting in his own heart for more. And then we have nothing, and no one gave him anything. No pity in those moments. No one came alongside to comfort, but he's there by himself. Then I want you to look at I'm going to read verse 16 again. Verse 16, he was longing to eat the carob pods the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Okay. Now, this is where Jesus takes a turn in the story. He's talked about a sheep. He's talked about a coin. Now he's talking about a son, which has the most value in a story like this. This is the son of a father. This is the inheritance. This is the family name continuing on. There's so much wrapped up in this story that Jesus is presenting here. And he's going to take this most valuable thing in the life of the father, and he's going to take him to the lowest place you can take a Jewish boy. So, pigs are not found in the Holy Land to this day. If you go back in a first century Jewish excavation, I've been to the majority of them throughout Israel. You will not find one pig bone in any excavation. They're not kosher. They're not considered clean to eat. And so they don't eat pig. They don't eat pork. And so you don't find them in any excavation. If you go on to the southeast side of the Galilee, you'll find pig bones because that's where Gentiles lived. That's where the demon-possessed man was relieved and the demons were cast into pigs. The only place in all of the Galilee where there were Gentiles and pig farmers, and the only place in all of the Galilee where there's a cliff high enough for pigs to jump off of. Just a side note. But that is the reality of the dietary laws of the Jewish people. You don't find pigs in excavations. So what's Jesus doing here? He's taking an old, dirty, nasty pig, and he's bringing this guy into the midst of the story, into Jewish listeners, and he's saying, listen, let me tell you how low I'll sink. Let me tell you how low I'll go. Yes, I went after that dumb sheep that kept running away. Yes, I've cleaned the house and I found the coin. But let me tell you how far I'll go. To the lowest place you can imagine. To a Jewish boy who's eating far less than the pigs he's feeding. Matter of fact, it says that he would gladly fill his belly with what the pigs are eating, these carob pods. He's looking at them like, those look good. Sure wish I had a carob pod. The pigs are better off than him. Do you think Jesus is trying to prove a point? I'm sitting here with tax collectors and sinners. Yeah, I am. And not only did they come to me, I sought them out. I cleaned the earth and I found them. There's a purpose for this guy's life. I swept the house. I went and sought the one. And now there's a boy who's chosen on his own free will to reject the father, to take his inheritance, his hard-earned money, and pour it down the toilet. A pig farmer, Jewish boy, who's a disgrace to any father. We know what it means to work, what it means to set fence and to lay cinder block and to stand walls and to fix plumbing, and what it means as men to work with our hands and to sweat and to get calluses and to work hard and labor to try to build something for our families. How disgraceful. All that hard work. Blood, sweat, tears, literally down the toilet. But your own flesh and blood looks up at you and says, hey, Dad, can I get that half of that inheritance? Okay, son, it's yours. And then for him to come back, having taken all of that hard-earned money and flush it. Does Jesus take this to a low place or does he not? Is he not taking it low as he can possibly take it? And why is he doing that? Because he's trying to prove a point to these. Verse 17. Let's look at the motivation in this boy coming back to his father. But when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired workers have food enough to spare, but here I am dying from hunger? What I want to focus on here is now the motivation in the boy in coming home. Jesus isn't even going to give him that. It doesn't say he came to himself and he realized how badly he had hurt his father. He realized how hard his dad had worked for all this and he had poured it down the toilet and he felt like a failure and a disgrace. No, he's hungry. That's it. There's food enough in my father's house, so I'll go back to him and I'll at least be able to eat like a hired servant. So here we have Jesus has taken a boy, squandered all of his dad's money. He's lower than the lowest thing a Jewish man can think of. He's eating less than pigs. He's taken him lower than pigs. He's slopping pigs. He's filthy. He's got nothing to show for himself. And now his grand announcement is this. I'm hungry. And they eat well at my father's house. Man, I'll just go be a servant at my father's house and live there. So now he's coming back to the father with bad motives, with nothing to show for himself. And here he comes. God does not need your help. He's done the work. You see a beautiful presentation of a man who had lived a life of riotous living and a prodigal life of decadence and depravity. But then we see that Christ is going to accept him. It's going to receive him. So what could this guy possibly do? We see here the image of ourselves pre-Christ. We see ourselves with nothing to offer. Listen, man, when I came here, bad motives. Period. I didn't want to go to jail. First time, didn't want to go to prison. Second time, didn't want to go to jail and then prison. That's my motivation. There's stuff to eat at Sonrise. Maybe I'll go back. It wasn't, man, I've made a wreck of my life and this great hope. Man, I didn't want to go to prison. That was my motive. And when I came in here, that's how I came. Empty-handed, nothing to show for myself except for a batch of wrong motives. But I'm going to tell you something. God doesn't save you because of your good motives. He saves you because He chose to. Because He reached down and He pulled you out of that cesspool you were living in. And He puts you right where He wants you, in the confines of the fold, to become His disciple, His student. Let's keep reading verse 18 as we finish this up. I will get up and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. Now he's thinking of his way back in. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired workers. At least we see some humility now coming from him as he approaches the father's house. Verse 20. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way from home, his father saw him and his heart went out to him. He ran and hugged his son and kissed him. So now we have the response of a father. How should the father respond here? Just naturally. Like if you're an onlooker and you're listening to Jesus teach, your answer is going to be the same as theirs. The same. You're going to come up with the same conclusion. That this father, his response should be this. Now he's out and he sees his son afar off. You can see people walking here at Sonrise and you can tell from a mile away across the plains of the property here and say, yep, that's Jesse. Yep, that's Brandon. You can see kind of people's walks. Well, here is the father. He's looking and he sees his son afar off and he recognizes him from a far distance away. How should the father respond? The son has wasted all of his money, all of his hard-earned money, has rejected him, hasn't communicated. And not only has he spent it all, but he spent it on garbage. He flushed it down the toilet. He lit it on fire and let it all go. How should the father respond? This is how I would think to see his silhouette across the field. See this guy? And I wonder if he's got anything left to show for himself. You can tell a lot by posture, right? Just by that. Some of you sighing while I'm preaching. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. But you can see it in here. You can see it across the field. The father knows his son, and you can just imagine. It'd be real easy to see it. I wonder what he's got to show for himself. I wonder what business decisions he's made. I wonder how he's leveraged this hard-earned money into something greater. But he doesn't respond that way. That's how he should respond. That's how my dad would respond. Look at this idiot. I'd probably respond the wrong way. I'm human. I wonder what he's got left. And then as he gets closer, what you see is as soon as the father recognizes him, it says his heart went out to him. I would say that his heart was already for his son. He's out, and it appears that he's out looking for his son to come home, and some have speculated that. It's speculation. Could be the case that he went out every evening to see if his boy was going to come home. But regardless, he saw him afar off, and when he saw him, what was his response? Was it that? He sees his boy. There's not a glimmer of that. There's not a hesitation. He sees and he reacts. He sees that's my boy. His heart goes out to him. He follows his heart and he bolts toward his boy. Just getting it. It's my boy. He's home. As you got a little closer, I'm sure he could see, man, he looks rough. Still running. Still running at him. As he gets closer, this boy's been slopping pigs. Oh, he looks like he's been slopping pigs. He would gladly fill his belly with what the pigs are eating. He didn't have time to go get a nice new wardrobe. He didn't have the money to. Couldn't even afford pig slop. He's coming as he is. Wrong motives, dirty clothing, stinking of pig slop. And he's standing there and his dad is just bolting. My boy. I thought he could have been dead. I laid up at night and his mom and I worried about him. We've prayed for him. What is God showing us through this story? He's saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm eating with sinners and tax collectors. Let me show you the extent by which I'm willing to traverse and travel in order to rescue these sinners and tax collectors. It's why I came to earth. And you want to be obstructionary in the process? Let me tell you how far I'll go. I'll go after the one sheep and I'll take it on my arms and I'll bring it back to the fold. I'll sweep the entire house, man, and I'll go after that coin and I'll find it. And then I'll rejoice with my neighbors saying, I found the one that was lost. And now we see a personal side to a father who sees you far off, wrong motives, nothing to show for yourselves, broken marriages, broken lives, reeking of this world. What is his response? It's my boy. He takes it to a place here that all fathers should understand. That's my son, man. He's my boy. There's something very personal here. It takes it away from the shepherd and the lost coin into a place of father and son relationship, and he's running toward them. He's bolting toward them. Once he sees that he's got nothing to show for himself, well, boy, this boy didn't even change outfits. He must have nothing. Then once he gets close enough to smell him, does he, so good to see you, son. Man, you stink. Let's get you a shower and a shave. No. I'm not much of a hugger. That's typically how I kind of hug. But that's not how God in this scenario and in this story is embracing his boy. There's not a flinch. There's not a stagger. There's a full force running toward his boy. Even though he sees all of this and all this is being contemplated, he still pursues, still runs after. Once he gets to him and he sees the look on his face and knows his motives are off, he still comes. Once he smells him, he doesn't just tap him on the shoulder. He brings him in close to his bosom and he embraces him and brings him into himself. And then we see the end of the story. He then takes and kills the fatted calf. It's going to be a party, man. My boy's home. My boy has been lost. We've worried. We've asked you all to pray for him. We've been crying out that God would do a work in his life, and he's come home. Here he is. Fatted calf, ring on the finger, robe around him. Do you get the comparison here? A shiny new gold ring, a beautiful garment full of color, and a man covered in pig slop. Why a ring is placed on his finger and a robe is draped around his shoulders. Because he's a son. So he has a party, he celebrates the coming home, and he relates this in every story. He ends this the same way with all three of these parables. And then I gathered everyone together, and we had a party because I found the coin. Then I gathered everybody together, and we rejoiced because the sheep was found. Then I gathered the entire family together, and we rejoice because my boy has come home. And he celebrates, he kills the fatted calf, and now we see the answer to the original question, which is, why does he eat with sinners and tax collectors? Who does he think he is? Who does he think he is to break bread with people like this? Well, the older son comes around and says, why all the celebration? Let me explain to you who the older son is. The older son are the Jewish individuals, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law that are there confronting Jesus and have a problem with him reaching sinners. So he says this, and this is how the story ends. He tells those three stories: sheep, coin, son. And he says, why are you celebrating, Dad? I've been with you all these years. I've worked my tail off all these years. And you've never once thrown a party. You never once celebrated me. I've been here faithful, working out in the fields. I didn't waste all your money. And now you're going to party? Where's my party? I mean, the guy's wrong, but it's a great argument. I mean, come on. Somebody tell me you wouldn't have the same argument. Like, dude, I've been here for 10 years, man, just grinding it out, working, feeding the cattle and hoeing the rows and planting the fields and coming in, and I'm just pouring into this family. He's taking it all and throwing it down the garbage. And you're partying? Yeah, he's partying. Because my boy who was lost has come home. He boils it down to the most simplest thing. My boy was lost and he's found. I'm going to rejoice in that fact. Now, if we're not careful, we'll be the ungrateful son sitting back and saying, why am I not being celebrated? So in this story, we see the hearts of the people he's addressing. Those individuals who have a problem with him breaking bread with lost and dying people. He says, let me tell you how important this is to me. I'm going to tell you 3 stories in order to show you how important this is to me. Do you see how important you are to him? That while we were afar off, with all the pig slop, with all the stank, he runs after us, doesn't flinch in the coming, and embraces us all the while. Men, we are transformed because of the embrace. Because he who knew no sin became sin for us. He embraces us in that brokenness. He is the solution for that brokenness. He is the soap that cleans it. We don't get cleaned up to come to him. These sinners are coming and sitting at that table as they are currently in their state. Thieves, liars, prostitutes. But he does not leave them that way. Time and time you hear it said again and again. Go and sin no more. It doesn't mean that there's an allowance for sin. It means that he is the solution to it. He is the remedy for it. You don't clean up with soap in order to go get cleaned up with soap. He is the soap. He is the cleansing agent. He is what transforms your life. Not your good intentions, not your motives, not your good works. He ran after us, set us free, brought us close to himself. And in this, we see the teaching of the rabbi that he wants to drive home, so much so that he tells it 3 times. God will go after you. He will sweep the earth for you. He will bring you back into the confines of the fold. And my friend, he will embrace you in all of your brokenness. Let's bow our heads. God, we love you and we thank you for this day, for your mercy and your grace. We need you and we thank you for what you're doing in our hearts and lives. God, we thank you for the stories of lost and broken people, and I'm glad for them because I am one. A man that is in desperate need of your mercy and your grace, Lord, and I had no way to get clean. Nothing to give, nothing to offer but brokenness. Lord, but you take beauty and you take ashes and you give beauty. You take fear and you give strength. Lord, Lord, change our lives, and we accept the embrace today. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you guys. Have a good day.